Hello everyone. We'll begin with the next chapter of class 11th, that is cell, the unit of life. Now when I talk about cell in general, we all know that all the plants and animals, all the living organisms are made up of cells, right? Now be it a small organism, that is till the microscopic organism, till the larger ones, they're all made up of cells, they're all composed of cells. Yes, so if I say what is a cell, how is the definition going? Cell is the basic, structural, functional unit of life. I repeat, cell is the basic, structural, functional unit of life. This is the basic definition of the cell. And who observed it first? The scientist's name is Robert Hooke. Now if you go into the discovery of the cell, how it goes, Robert Hooke, an English scientist in 1665, studied a thin slice of a cork in his self-designed microscope, which resembled as that of a honeycomb structure. And there in the honeycomb structure, he observed there are some spaces there, which he named it as compartments. Compartments, all small rooms. Then later on, it was termed as cell. So initially, who took over the charge is Robert Hooke. So we have to learn about the different contribution from the scientist, who all contributed what and all things in the cell. The first scientist that we have to learn is Robert Hooke, yes, who studied the thin slice of a cork. Then the second scientist which comes into existence is who? Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He used improved microscope. Okay, he used improved microscope to study nuclei and unicellular organisms. The second scientist, Anton van Leeuwenhoek. Then comes the third one, who is Robert Brown. Now Robert Brown, he discovered the nucleus as what? He gave the characteristic of a nucleus saying it is spherical in shape. Then comes the fourth scientist, the name is what? Schleiden and Schwann. Now Schleiden is a botanist and Schwann is a zoologist. Both are German biologists. What did they do in the cell? They gave the cell theory. Now what is the basic cell theory that they gave? That cell is a basic unit of life, right? And all organisms are made up of cell, or all organisms are composed of cells. Then came Virchow. Virchow, what did he do? He expanded the cell theory. Now how did he expand the cell theory? He said that omnicellula acellulae, which means all cells arise from pre-existing cells. These are the contributions of different scientists, what they put forth into, right? Now when I say organisms can be divided into, depending on their one cell or their many cells. So we distinguish this as what? A unicellular organism or a multicellular organism. Now for distinguishing, now if we have to give a distinguishing point for a unicellular and a multicellular organism, here it goes. Unicellular organisms, single cell carries out all the vital functions of life. In multicellular, if I have to say, different cells carry out different functions, right? Now the cells are in multicellular, the cells are differentiated to a specific function. Now in multicellular, the cells are differentiated into specific function. For example, if I have to give muscle cells, they help in movement, right? When I say nerve cells, they help for response to stimuli. So this is one of the examples that they perform specific function, right? The next point, for the unicellular, cell is sufficiently large, and for the multicellular, cells are of various sizes. Some may be small, some may be large, right? Here in unicellular, you can give an example of amoeba, paramecium, yes, and in multicellular, you can give all higher plants and animals as well. Okay, now when I talk about the cell theory, which was proposed by Schleiden and Schwann. Now Schleiden and Schwann gave what cell theory? First they said that cell is a basic unit of life, right? Second they said what? All organisms are made up of cell, right? Then Virchow came into existence and Virchow said, he expanded the cell theory. What did he say? That all cells arise from pre-existing cells. So that goes with the 3 points of the cell theory completely, right? That is, cell is a basic unit of life. All living organisms are composed of cells and all cells arise from pre-existing cells. Yes or no? This is about the cell theory. Now, if you go for the overview of a cell, if you take an example of an experiment with a human cheek cells, right? If you have to observe the human cheek cells, what is there in the human cheek cell when you see it in the under the microscope? There is a outer covering which has been bound, that is known as what? The plasma membrane, right? And inside that they have dense circular structure which is known as nucleus, surrounded with what? The cytoplasm, right? And this nucleus carries the chromosomes with them, which carry the hereditary material that passes from one generation to the next generation. Now then, if you have to compare a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell, now how do we recognize whether it is a prokaryote or whether it is a eukaryote? Now, prokaryotes are the one which does not have well-defined nucleus, whereas the eukaryotes are the ones which have well-defined nucleus. Now, if you have to go into the detail about the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic, you can say the prokaryotic cell is very small, microscopic, and generally the size vary from 1 to 10 micrometer in diameter, whereas in eukaryotic they are large. The size can vary from 5 to 100 micrometer, right? Now, as I said earlier, prokaryotic cells do not have a true nucleus, right? And when I say about eukaryotic cell, they have a well-defined nucleus, which you can say a true nucleus, right? Now, since prokaryotic cell does not have a nucleus, it is obvious that they don't have a nuclear membrane, and eukaryotes, they have a nuclear membrane, right? And even now when we say it's a well-defined nucleus, when we say that when the nucleus have all the structures in them, that is a nuclear membrane, the outer covering, the nucleolus, the chromatin fibers, this all comprises of a nucleus. So that is known as a well-defined nucleus. And when I say it is not a true nucleus, then how do I say, or not a well-defined nucleus, how do I say they don't have a nuclear membrane? They don't have a nucleolus in them, right? Neither a chromatin fiber. So the membrane-bound organelles are absent in the prokaryotic cell, while in the eukaryotic cell they are present. Now, membrane-bound organelles may include what? The ER, that is endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, lysosomes, chloroplast, etc. Here in prokaryotic cell, you can give an example of what? Bacteria. And in eukaryotic cell, you can give an example of plants and animals. Yes? Let's observe the diagram carefully of prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. Now, when you talk about the variations in the cell, now smaller the organism, it will have less amount of cells in them, while larger the organism, it will have more amount of cells in them. Yes or no? Yes. Now that when I have to talk about the size of the cell, now size of the cell varies from 0.1 micrometer to 18 centimeter. Now when I say the smallest cell, that is 0.1 micrometer, it is Mycoplasma galliseptum, while 18 centimeter it is an ostrich egg. So from 0.1 micrometer to 18 centimeter, the size of the cell can vary, right? Now when I have to talk about a bacterial cell, there are different forms of a bacterial cell depending on the shape. The shape are what? First, coccus, second, bacillus, third, spirillum, fourth, vibrio, right? When I say coccus, it is spherical in shape. When I say bacillus, it is rod shaped. When I say the third one, that is spirillum, it is twisted or coiled shaped bacteria. When I say about the fourth category, that is vibrio, it is comma shaped. Yes. Now when I say about coccus also, they have different types, monococcus, dicoccus, meaning with one coccus or with two or with three, then staphylococcus. In the same way for the bacillus also they have varieties, but we just have to concentrate right now that there are four forms for the bacteria or the shapes, that is the coccus, bacillus, spirillum and the vibrio. Now here we have to study the general features of prokaryotic cell. How does it go is, now when I talk about a bacterial cell, it has a cell wall, a plasma membrane, cytoplasm, genetic material, flagella, pili or fimbriae and plasmid. Okay. Now when I talk about the cell wall features, every bacterial or a prokaryotic cell is bound by a rigid cell wall. The thickness and the structure of the cell wall differs in two types of bacteria. Either it is gram positive or either it is gram negative. Now gram positive and gram negative we have already studied in the last chapter and we have already distinguished the points, so I am not repeating it again. The fundamental structure of the cell wall remains the same here. Now when I talk about the plasma membrane, it is the inner to the cell wall which lies thin, right, and it is also known as selectively permeable membrane. Now why is it known as selectively permeable membrane? Because it only allows some materials to enter and exit the cell, right? That is the reason it is also known as selectively permeable membrane. Also it is known as a cell membrane, right? When I talk about cytoplasm, it appears granular due to presence of ribosomes, right? Now ribosomes are the main site for what? Protein synthesis. Yes, and it is also it stores food, lipid or glycogen granules as well. Now when I talk about the genetic material, it is in the form of a singular circular DNA which is attached to the cell membrane at a point. Now the nuclear membrane is absent since it's a prokaryotic cell. It does not have a well-defined nucleus, so nuclear membrane is absent. So genetic material is present in the discrete region which is called as nucleode, and the nucleode is not separated from cytoplasm by any membrane. Okay. When I talk about the flagella, many bacteria may be equipped with one or more flagella that help them to move and respond to stimuli. While pili and fimbriae, both terms are interchangeably used. These are shorter and thinner than flagella and are present in some gram-negative bacteria. Okay, they help in attaching bacteria to each other and to other objects. Okay, now plasmid, when I talk about, many bacteria have smaller circular DNA outside the genomic DNA. This smaller DNA is called the plasmid. The plasmid DNA confers unique phenotypic characters to bacteria. One such character is resistance to antibiotics, while plasmid DNA is used for bacterial transformation with foreign DNA. Now we have to move ahead with the ultrastructure of the bacteria, that is a prokaryotic cell. Now to study the ultrastructure of the bacteria, we can only study through an electron microscope. And when we study in the electron microscope, following things that we are going to learn it in detail, that is the cell envelope and its modification. Now when I talk about the cell envelope, most prokaryotic cells, particularly bacterial cells, have a chemically complex cell envelope. The layers of cell envelope are stacked upon one another and often bonded together tightly. This consists of three basic layers. One is glycocalyx, second is cell wall, the third one is cell membrane. Now when I talk about glycocalyx, it is the outermost layer, which is in the form of either capsule or a slime layer. When I talk about the cell wall, it is inner to glycocalyx. When I talk about cell membrane, which is a plasma membrane, it is innermost layer enclosing the cytoplasm. To go it in detail, glycocalyx, it is the outermost layer, yes, which differs in the thickness and chemical composition in the different bacteria. Now it is of two types, either a capsule or a slime layer. A capsule is comparatively thicker, tough and more compact than a slime layer, while slime layer is loose sheet. Okay. Next you can see is what it is mainly made up of polysaccharide but may contain proteins also. What is the function of glycocalyx then? What is it used for? These gives what additional protection to the bacteria from unfavorable conditions and also enable the bacteria to stick to each other and form colonies. Okay, and the presence of the capsule is an indication of virulence of some bacteria. Okay, for example, a form of Diplococcus causes pneumonia. If you remember in coccus, when I said it is categorized into many, one mono, one is diplo, one is staphylococcus, and that diplococcus which has two coccus together which can cause what? Pneumonia. The next one, cell wall. When I talk about the second layer of the cell envelope, that is cell wall, it is a second layer, right, which is present beneath the glycocalyx. Okay, what is the function of a cell wall? As we all know, it gives shape, right, but here it gives shape to the bacteria. Okay, being rigid, it gives protection as well against what? Mechanical and chemical injury and even pathogens. Okay, next we have to learn about the cell wall is the structure. It is usually consisting of a peptidoglycan. Now what is peptidoglycan? It is a network of a polysaccharide molecule, okay, which is connected to peptide crosslinks or polypeptide crosslinks. Okay, now this peptidoglycan is composed of repeated framework of a long chain of glycan strands, okay, which are cross-linked to peptide chain. and these provide strong, they are very strong and flexible for framework. Now this layer differs in gram-positive as well as in gram-negative bacteria. A number of antibiotics like penicillin, cephalosporin inhibit the cross-linking of this peptidoglycan strands. The third layer we have to talk about for cell envelope is the cell membrane or the plasma membrane, which is inner to the cell wall and forms boundary of cytoplasm. Basically, innermost layer enclosing the cytoplasm. It is selectively permeable membrane, right? Because it allows only some materials to enter and exit the cell, right? Now, the plasma membrane of the bacteria differs from those of the eukaryotes in the following ways. What is that? The bacterial plasma membrane lacks sterols, such as the cholesterol in its bilipid layer. Now, what is the function of the plasma membrane? The plasma membrane of a bacterial cell perform different functions. One is it serves as a selectively permeable barrier, right, which allows the entry and exit of some materials only. Then it prevents loss of essential components, okay, through leakage and help in movement of molecules as well. Then it helps in the transport system of the cell, like the nutrient uptake, protein secretion, etc. Okay. So I hope you understood today's concept. We will continue in the next video lecture. Thank you.